Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Next in line in my grandfather's pocket knives that I inherited is the Utica Cutlery Company, who looks like they are still in business today. According to their website, they started in 1910 and continue to make these pocket knives. These look to me like sort of 1940s, 50s style, but that's just based on me looking at them. I don't know how old these knives are or anything. But yeah, they're pretty neat little knives. This one's pretty interesting because it doesn't have any covers. This is some kind of metal. I'm going with nickel. So yeah, pretty neat knives. Both real solid. I don't know. It has this big. My grandfather put a big 0 on there. I don't know. Was he trying to give them away? I don't know. I'm not going to give these knives away, but here you go. But yeah, it's real. Seem to be real well-made knives here. And as usual, I don't do a whole lot of restoration, just other than trying to get that masking tape and rubber band stuff off of them. I'm gonna end up putting these guys on eBay to hopefully go to a new home. My grandfather collected these knives, and you know, to anybody who's seen lots of my other channels, they all know the story. My grandfather would go to local Northern and Central California flea markets, swap meets, whatever they're called, and just pick up knives that he thought were cool. He didn't have any, as far as I know, he didn't have any rhyme or reason to it. He just thought he would pick up stuff that looked pretty cool that he didn't have to pay a lot of money for. And then he would take them home, sharpen them up. I don't think he did any restoration or anything. He just kind of sharpened the blades and stuff. Would then stick these knives into a knife roll and store them in his piano. The knife collection grew over the years, and as I have now gotten them, my father inherited them, and my father passed away in November of 2023, and he allowed me to have them. Which is a funny way of saying it, but that's kind of how it went. They've been mostly sitting around. They were in plastic tubs in my father's house in one of the back rooms. And I have decided when I got them that I wasn't going to keep them. I wasn't going to keep them for my daughters or anything. They don't seem to be interested in them. And I don't want to continue that tradition of having them just sit around. I'd rather put them to use or give them to somebody who does want to appreciate them. So, luckily, my generation has eBay and internet, so that's possible. My grandfather would definitely not be able to do this. I know he's tried to sell them a time or two because of all the labels. We tried to sell them, but obviously he didn't. He still had 1,000 of them. I couldn't imagine if he had more. Even though these aren't particularly expensive knives, they do seem to have sentimental value for people. They are being purchased. So far I've noticed they go to a lot of people in like the South. People in Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina. I think one person in North Dakota. It's more rural parts, which isn't surprising. This bottle opener doesn't. It's pretty darn tight. Doesn't. That's better than it was, but don't know how collectible these guys are. I mean, all these vintage knives are collectible. They seem to be a pretty good company. If they're still in business, they started in 1910, must be doing something, right? This blade's unusual. I don't know what this is all about. Maybe some kind of a skinning knife? Kind of do that kind of thing. But I don't know what this whole divot thing is for. I am finding this smooth metal blade is hard to hold on to. Good snap there. Leaf main blade. There's the Utica stamp. I live in the suburbs of California, so I don't have much call for pocket knife, except at Christmas, birthdays and Christmas when I need to open a package, or Amazon, and that just seems like a cop-out to me. Definitely much more used in the past, and definitely much more used by folks in the rural area who would help them out a little bit more. You don't do a lot of when my grandfather and my father would do a whole lot of camping. And I did a bunch when I was growing up. My father would drag me out there. And honestly, I just kind of put up with it. I wasn't a big fan of camping. I did it. When my father and I would go, he would take me up to Kauai River, which is in the sort of the central California. We would go trout fishing. We would hike way back up a river and go do a lot of trout fishing. Later in life, him and I would do a lot of quail hunting, where we would stay out there overnight and wake up in the morning, do some quail hunting. So I'm not completely unfamiliar with being outdoors, and being outdoors with a knife is super useful for all the stuff you might be doing. I wasn't a Boy Scout. I was a Weeblos, and so for anybody who knows about that, that's kind of pre-Boy Scout thing, but I didn't stick with it. So, I'm pretty familiar with hunting and fishing and being out in the outdoors, but it never really was a thing that I was super into. But my father and grandfather were certainly really into it. My grandfather would be out there camping, and he'd take my father along with him. He used to go out, I mentioned this before a time or two, he'd go out deer hunting with my father and bring back the deer, and my grandmother would cook it for the family. I don't think my grandmother liked to do it, but in those days you didn't really tell your husband no. You just did it. Not that my grandmother was particularly weak or anything. She just, you know, what else you gotta do? You gotta feed the family. So, yeah. This blade doesn't quite go in there. It sticks pretty good, but it ends up being okay. But real solid knife here. I forget what this is called, but this loop is real good. Nothing, I mean, that shakes a little bit, but I couldn't imagine. You want some shake, so it's free. Everything else is real nice and solid. No rust. Good snap. Maybe a little tight. Well, so much for that good snap. Not exactly. This one does not have a half stop, but it's not terrible either. This guy, pretty good snap. Yeah, none of these guys have rust or anything. Real clean knife. I don't, you know, the rivets aren't like loose or anything, so I don't believe this is like a cover that fell off or anything. It just looks like it was made this way. As opposed to this guy over here, which does have covers. It's a little two blade Barlow style knife. Clip point blade. There's the Utica stamp. This one definitely has half stops. Another sort of mid-century 1900s knife. No rust on that sucker. Stop. Nice snap. Another just a real solid, dependable knife here. A little tight. These two guys are a little bit tight, but they certainly work enough. I don't know what this blade material is. Bone? Antler? Heck if I know. Cool little shield. Got some of that masking tape on here. Everything looks pretty tight and well manufactured. Stood the test of time so far. I believe even the cheapest of these knives will outlive me. Yeah, these guys, these Utica knives just seem like just decent, solid knives. Kind of middle of the road guys. Kind of some, I don't know what that is, tarnishing or something there. Doesn't seem like rust or anything. Okay. Utica Knife Company. I should say Utica Cutlery Company out of Utica, New York. Still got some stuff on there. It looks like that center one's some brass, I guess. Brass liners with these nickel covers. Pretty neat. Those look like brass as well. Brass liners. All right. Well, thanks, Utica. Thanks, Grandpa. All right.